I love my wife so much that I ignored every red flag until it was too late. That's the truth I've been running from for months now. The admission that keeps me awake at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling while Claire sleeps peacefully beside me. 15 years. That's how long we've been married. 15 years of birthday dinners and Christmas mornings, of shared dreams and whispered promises in the dark. I worked 60-hour weeks at the construction firm, took every overtime shift they offered, all so Claire could have the life she wanted. The house in Westbrook Heights, the BMW in the driveway, the designer handbags she'd casually mentioned wanting. Her parents, Robert and Helen, treated me like the son they never had. Sunday dinners at their place were sacred. Robert would pull me aside to watch the game while Helen and Claire gossiped in the kitchen. "You're the best thing that ever happened to our girl," Helen would say, squeezing my shoulder with those warm, motherly hands. I believed her. God help me, I believed all of it. The changes started a year ago, subtle as a shadow creeping across the floor. Claire would flinch when I touched her shoulder. Not dramatically, just a tiny pull away, like my hands were cold. She started taking her phone to the bathroom, something she'd never done before. "Just checking work emails," she'd say with a dismissive wave, but her marketing job at the nonprofit had never required bathroom email checks in 14 years. Then came the work trips. 3 in the last 6 months, all to conferences that seemed vague when I asked about them. "Oh, you know, boring nonprofit stuff. Donor relations, grant writing workshops," she'd explain, already changing the subject. But she'd come back from these trips different, lighter somehow, like she'd shed some invisible weight. She'd be affectionate for a day or two, almost guilty in her attention, before sliding back into that careful distance. I found the Victoria's Secret charge on our credit card statement last month, $400. When I mentioned it, thinking maybe she'd bought something special for our anniversary, she laughed. "Oh, that was for Melissa's bachelorette party gift. You know how expensive lingerie gets," she said breezily. But Melissa's bachelorette party had been 3 months earlier, and I remembered Claire buying her a spa gift certificate. The makeup was next. Chanel lipstick in the glove compartment, a shade of red I'd never seen on her lips. "Emergency makeup for client meetings," she explained when I found it while looking for the insurance papers. But her nonprofit worked with homeless shelters and food banks. What client meeting required Chanel? Last Tuesday, she said she was visiting her sick aunt in Riverside, Aunt Martha, who'd been dealing with pneumonia. She packed carefully, too carefully for a sick visit. A dress I'd bought her 2 anniversaries ago that she'd never worn. New heels still in their box, that perfume her sister gave her last Christmas. "Martha likes when people dress nice," she said, not meeting my eyes. It cheers her up. I wanted to believe her. Christ, I wanted to believe her so badly that I made myself sick with the wanting. This was Claire, my Claire, the woman who cried at dog food commercials and couldn't kill spiders because they have families too. The woman who still kept our wedding bouquet pressed in a frame above our dresser, but that nagging voice, the one that noticed how she angled her phone away when texting, how she'd started showering before bed instead of in the morning, how she hummed in the kitchen, actually hummed, after returning from these trips. That voice was getting louder. Which brings me to tonight. I'm sitting at our kitchen table, laptop open, staring at our shared email account. We'd set it up years ago for household stuff, utilities, mortgage documents, things like that. I was looking for our property tax confirmation when I saw it. Hyatt Hotels. Booking confirmation. This weekend, the same weekend she's supposedly visiting Aunt Martha again. The booking was for 2 guests, and the room type was listed as romantic suite. My hands shook as I realized I was holding proof of something I wasn't ready to face. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that booking confirmation burned into my retinas like I'd stared at the sun too long. 2 guests, romantic suite. The Hyatt was 3 hours away, in the opposite direction from Riverside where Aunt Martha lived. By 4 a.m., I was at the kitchen table again, laptop open, coffee growing cold beside me. I pulled up Claire's work calendar. She'd given me access years ago so I could schedule dinner reservations around her meetings. There it was, Professional Development Conference blocked out for Friday through Sunday. The same dates as the hotel booking. My hands trembled as I called the Hyatt, using the confirmation number from the email. "Hi, I'm calling to confirm some details for my stay this weekend." I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Of course, Mr. Webb. I see your reservation here for the romantic suite, checking in Friday. Will you still need the champagne and strawberries package? The receptionist asked cheerfully. Webb? Marcus Webb! The name hit me like a physical blow. Her supervisor. Married Marcus Webb with his perfect wife and 2 young kids, whose photos decorated his office. Marcus Webb, who'd been so supportive of Claire's career growth, who'd recommended her for that promotion last year. Yes, I managed to say. That's still needed. I hung up and sprinted to the bathroom, barely making it before I vomited. 15 years. 15 fucking years. And she was screwing her married boss in romantic suites while I worked overtime to pay for the life she wanted. The rage came next, hot and blinding. I wanted to smash something, to drive to her office and confront them both. But underneath the rage was something colder, more calculated. If I was going to burn this down, I was going to do it right. I spent the next 3 hours documenting everything. Screenshots of the hotel confirmation, photos of credit card statements showing charges I'd overlooked, restaurants I thought were client dinners, boutique hotels I'd assumed were conference venues. I found deleted text messages in her phone's backup folder on our shared cloud. Can't wait for this weekend. MX. Tell your wife you're golfing. I'll tell Dee I'm at Martha's. You make me feel alive again. Each message was a knife, but I kept going. I printed everything, organized it chronologically. By the time Claire woke up at 7 a.m., I had a folder an inch thick. You're up early, she said, padding into the kitchen in her robe. She kissed my cheek, and I had to force myself not to pull away. Couldn't sleep, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Big project at work. She made sympathetic noises while brewing her coffee, and I watched her like I was seeing a stranger. How many times had she kissed me after kissing him? How many lies had those lips told? That evening, after Claire left for her yoga class, or wherever she actually went on Thursday nights, I made the hardest call of my life. Robert? It's Daniel. I need to talk to you and Helen. Privately. It's about Claire, I said. The silence on the other end stretched for eternity. Come over, Robert finally said, his voice heavy. She's at yoga until 9, right? They knew. Somehow, part of them already knew. I sat in their living room, the same room where I'd asked for their blessing to marry Claire 16 years ago. Helen held my hand while I showed them everything. The hotel booking, the credit card charges, the text messages. I watched Robert's face transform from confusion to disbelief, to a rage I'd never seen in the gentle man who'd taught me to fish. Helen broke down completely. That's our daughter, she kept saying through her tears. Our daughter did this? She's planning another trip this weekend, I said quietly. Same hotel, same room. With Marcus Webb. Robert stood up abruptly, walked to the window. When he turned back, his face was stone. She's planning another trip this weekend, isn't she? He asked, though he already knew the answer. When I nodded, his voice turned deadly quiet. Then we're going to be there when she opens that hotel room door. I saw something in her father's eyes that night. The same cold rage that was building in my chest. Claire had no idea that her lies were about to come crashing down around her, and she especially didn't know that her own parents were going to be the ones to deliver the blow. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of pristine sunshine that felt like mockery. Claire hummed in the bathroom while she did her makeup, the expensive kind she never wore for me anymore. I lay in bed, pretending to sleep, watching through slitted eyes as she selected each item for her suitcase with the care of someone preparing for a runway show. The black dress with the plunging neckline, bought last month, tags removed yesterday. Lingerie I'd never seen, still wrapped in tissue paper. The perfume her sister gave her, which she'd claimed was too strong for everyday wear. Every item was evidence of her double life, chosen specifically for another man's eyes. Hey, Sleepy, she said softly, sitting on the edge of the bed. I'm heading out. Aunt Martha's expecting me by lunch. How's she doing? I asked, my voice rough with fake sleep. Oh, good days and bad days, she replied with practiced ease. The lie rolled off her tongue like water. I'll probably stay through Sunday dinner. Don't wait up. She leaned down to kiss me goodbye, a quick, obligatory peck that felt like an insult. There was an energy about her, an excitement she couldn't quite hide. She was eager to leave, eager to get to him. After 15 years, I'd become the obligation, the chore to check off before her real life could begin. "Drive safe," I said. "I love you." "Love you too," she replied automatically, already halfway out the door. I waited at the bedroom window until her BMW disappeared around the corner. Then I called Robert. "She just left," I said. "We'll pick you up in an hour." Helen needs some time to prepare herself," he replied, his voice heavy with resignation. I spent that hour walking through our house like a ghost haunting his own life. Our wedding photos on the mantel, Claire radiant in white, me grinning like I'd won the lottery, the kitchen table where we'd shared thousands of meals, the couch where we'd watched movies every Friday night for over a decade. When had it all become a lie? Or had it always been one, and I was just too blind to see it? Robert's Suburban pulled into the driveway exactly an hour later. Helen sat in the back seat, tissues clutched in her hand, eyes red and swollen. Robert looked like he'd aged 5 years overnight. "You sure you want to do this?" I asked as I climbed in. "She's our daughter," Helen said quietly. "We failed somewhere. We need to see it. Need to understand how we raised someone capable of this." "Don't," Robert said sharply, glancing back at his wife. "Don't you dare blame yourself for this. She's 38 years old. These are her choices." The 3-hour drive felt like 3 days. We rode in mostly silence, each lost in our own thoughts. Occasionally, Helen would start crying again, and Robert would reach back to squeeze her hand. At one point, she told me about Claire as a child, stubborn, charming, always able to talk her way out of trouble. "We spoiled her," Helen admitted softly. "I see that now. Always making excuses, always believing her version of events even when teachers or friends' parents said otherwise." "Stop that," Robert interrupted firmly. "This isn't on us." She knew right from wrong. As we passed the city limits sign, Robert spoke again. "I keep thinking about Marcus Webb's wife, Jennifer. Met her at Claire's office Christmas party. Sweet woman. Those 2 little kids." "Someone should tell her," Helen said. "Someone will," I replied grimly. "After today, everyone will know." The Hyatt loomed ahead, all glass and false promises. I checked the room number online, 412, 4th floor facing the pool. The romantic suite with its champagne and strawberries, with its king-sized bed where my wife was probably naked right now with another woman's husband. We parked in the visitor section. Robert turned off the engine and we sat there. Nobody moving. "Once we go up there," Robert said slowly, "there's no going back. No pretending things are fine. No more family dinners where we all act normal. You both understand that?" Helen grabbed my hand. "You'll always be our son, Daniel. Whatever happens up there, that doesn't change," she said firmly. I squeezed back, unable to speak past the knot in my throat. We walked through the lobby like condemned prisoners approaching the gallows. The elevator ride was silent except for the cheerful ding at each floor. 2nd floor, 3rd floor, 4th floor. Room 412 was at the end of the hall. As we approached, we heard it, laughter. Claire's laughter, bright and free in a way I hadn't heard in years. She was happy. Genuinely, radiantly happy in there with him. Robert's hand clamped down on my shoulder. His face was granite, but his eyes blazed. Helen stood straight, tissues forgotten. Transformation from grieving mother to avenging angel complete. I raised my hand to knock on the door, but paused when another sound drifted through. A man's voice, low and intimate, followed by Claire's giggle. A giggle, like a teenager with her first crush. Robert grabbed my shoulder and nodded grimly. "Do it," he commanded. I knocked 3 times, firm and deliberate. The laughter stopped immediately, followed by frantic whispering. When footsteps approached the door, I realized that in about 10 seconds, Claire's entire world was going to collapse, and she had no idea what was coming. The door opened 6 inches, security chain still attached. Claire peered through the gap, her hair mussed, hotel bathrobe hastily tied. Her smile, probably expecting room service, died the instant she saw us. "Daniel?" she whispered. Then her eyes shifted to her parents, and the color drained from her face entirely. "Mom? Dad? What are you—" "Open the door, Claire," Robert commanded, his voice impossibly calm, terrifyingly quiet. This isn't—" "You don't understand," she stammered. "Open the door," he repeated, each word like a hammer blow. Her hands shook as she closed the door to remove the chain. When it opened fully, we saw the complete picture. Claire in the white hotel robe, makeup smeared, lips swollen. Behind her, Marcus Webb scrambled to pull the bedsheet around himself, his wedding ring catching the light as he moved. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, Marcus started, his voice cracking. This isn't— Shut your mouth, Robert snarled, walking past Claire into the room. Don't you dare speak to me, you piece of shit. The room was exactly what I'd imagined. Champagne bucket on the nightstand, 2 glasses with lipstick marks. Claire's new lingerie draped over a chair. The bed sheets twisted and pulled free from the corners. The smell of intimacy and her perfume hanging in the air like evidence at a crime scene. Daddy, please! Claire began desperately. The slap came from Helen. Not hard, but sharp enough to shock everyone into silence. Helen, who'd never raised a hand to anyone in her life, stood there with tears streaming down her face. How could you? Helen's voice broke. How could you do this to Daniel? To us? To that man's family? It just happened, Claire pleaded. We didn't mean for it to— It just happened. I finally found my voice and it came out as a roar. The hotel bookings just happened. The lingerie just happened. The lies about Aunt Martha just happened. Marcus tried to stand, still clutching the sheet. Look, Daniel, man to man, he began. That's when I lost it. 15 years of being the good husband, the patient husband, the understanding husband. It all shattered. I crossed the room in 2 strides and hit him. Not perfectly, not like in the movies, but hard enough to send him sprawling back onto the bed, blood spurting from his nose. Daniel! Claire screamed, rushing to Marcus. And that moment when she went to him instead of trying to explain to me, that's when I knew it was really over. You're done, Robert said to Claire, his voice like ice. You're not welcome in our home anymore. Don't call, don't visit, don't even drive by. Daddy, you can't mean that, she sobbed. I'm ashamed of you, he continued, his voice steady and cold. Ashamed that you're my daughter. Ashamed of what you've become. Helen stepped forward. 15 years Daniel has been part of our family. 15 years of Sunday dinners, holidays, birthdays. He's been more of a child to us than you've been these last few years. And this is how you repay him? How you repay us? She asked, her voice trembling with rage. Marcus was trying to stop his nosebleed with tissues, muttering about calling the police. Call them, I said coldly. Explain to them how you're here with my wife while your wife thinks you're at a conference. I'm sure Jennifer would love to hear that recording. His face went white above the bloody tissues. Claire was sobbing now, ugly, harsh sobs. You don't understand, she wailed. My marriage was dead. Daniel and I, we're just roommates. Have been for years. Roommates? I laughed bitterly, but there was no humor in it. I worked 60-hour weeks to pay for your life. I missed my father's birthday party last month because you needed me to attend your office fundraiser. I've spent 15 years loving you, supporting you, building a life with you, and you call us roommates? You'll get nothing in the divorce, Robert told Claire flatly. I'll make sure of that. I know every lawyer in this county, and they'll all know what you did here. The house is in my name, too, she protested weakly. The house my parents helped with the down payment for? I shot back. The house we bought with the bonus from my job? That house? Your name might be on it, but everyone will know why you lost it. I walked to the closet and grabbed Claire's suitcase, dumping its contents onto the floor. The new dress, the lingerie, the perfume, it all tumbled out like evidence of her betrayal. Get dressed and get out, I ordered. Your stuff will be in the driveway by Monday. Come get it or it goes to Goodwill? Daniel, please, she begged. We're done. Divorce papers will be filed Monday morning, I said with finality. Helen walked to Marcus, who was still trying to stem his nosebleed. I know your wife, Jennifer. She volunteers at the same food bank I do. She deserves to know what kind of man she married, she said quietly. Please, Marcus begged pathetically. My kids. Should have thought of that before you f***ed my daughter, Robert spat. We walked toward the door, leaving Claire sobbing on the floor, her perfect weekend destroyed. At the doorway, I turned back one last time. She looked small, pathetic. Nothing like the woman I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. Was it worth it? I asked. She just cried harder. As we walked down the hallway, Helen took my arm on one side, Robert on the other. We heard Claire calling after us, begging, but none of us turned around. In the elevator, Helen spoke quietly. "You'll always be our son, Daniel. Nothing she did changes that," she reassured me. 6 months later, I learned just how completely Claire's life had fallen apart. And I realized that sometimes the best revenge is simply letting someone face the full consequences of their choices. The divorce was final in 3 months. Texas is a fault state, and adultery documented with evidence, photos, hotel receipts, witness testimony from her own parents, meant Claire got nothing except her personal belongings and her car. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts all stayed with me. Her lawyer, some cheap attorney from 2 towns over, Robert had been true to his word about poisoning the local legal well, tried to argue for alimony. The judge actually laughed. Marcus Webb's story ended predictably. Jennifer filed for divorce the day after Helen paid her a visit with printed screenshots of the text messages. He lost his house, his kids except for every other weekend, and most of his salary to child support. The nonprofit fired him 2 weeks later. Turns out sleeping with subordinates violates their ethics policy. Last I heard, he was working at a car dealership in Houston, living in a studio apartment. Claire lost her job, too. Not officially for the affair, but because working in a small nonprofit where everyone knows your business becomes impossible. The executive director, a friend of Helen's from church, suggested Claire might be happier elsewhere. She lasted 2 weeks after Marcus was fired before resigning, but the real devastation was the family loss. Robert and Helen meant what they said. They changed their will, removing Claire entirely. They blocked her number, returned her letters unopened. When she showed up at their house on Thanksgiving, Robert called the police. The entire extended family followed suit. Aunts, uncles, cousins. Claire had committed the unforgivable sin. She'd hurt one of their own, and in their eyes, I was more family than she was. I still have Sunday dinner with Robert and Helen. We don't talk about Claire, though Helen keeps a photo from our wedding on the mantel. Not of Claire in her dress, but of me dancing with Helen at the reception. "My son," she tells anyone who asks. 3 months ago, Helen introduced me to her friend's daughter, Sarah, a pediatric nurse, divorced herself after her ex-husband's gambling addiction destroyed their marriage. We've been taking it slow, but she makes me laugh in ways I'd forgotten I could. Robert approves. He's already planning fishing trips for when things get more serious. Claire lives in a 1-bedroom apartment on the south side of town. I know because I saw her at the grocery store last week. She looked older, thinner, worn down. She tried to approach me, but I simply turned and walked away. The manager, who knows our story like everyone in town does, asked her to leave. Her former co-worker told Helen that Claire spends her evenings alone, drinking wine and calling numbers that never answer. She's applied for jobs in other cities, but in the nonprofit world, reputation follows you. No references from your previous employer or board members means no callbacks. The woman who thought she could have her marriage as a safety net while chasing excitement with her boss ended up with nothing. No husband, no lover, no family, no career, no home. Just a cheap apartment and the knowledge that she destroyed everything for a few months of hotel rooms and stolen afternoons. Sometimes I drive past that apartment complex on my way home from work, not to see her, but to remind myself that actions have consequences, that lies, no matter how carefully constructed, eventually collapse, that when you betray someone who loves you, who built a life with you, who chose you every day for 15 years, you don't just lose them. You lose everything connected to them. Sarah asked me once if I ever regret how it ended, if I wish I'd handled it differently. I told her the truth. My only regret is not seeing the signs sooner. The confrontation, the divorce, the complete cutting off, that was justice. Not revenge, but the natural consequence of Claire's choices. She thought she could humiliate me in secret. Instead, she humiliated herself in front of everyone who ever mattered to her. Sometimes the best revenge is just stepping back and letting someone destroy their own life. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.